Episode 110, Allison Ivy. Good morrow, and welcome back to the Realm. I'm J.V. Hilliard, your host for today, and today I've got a very special guest, a longtime friend of mine, someone who writes in my genre, a fellow fantasy adventure author. She's an indie author, and she's chosen to go indie when she could have gone the traditional publishing route because of the freedom that I think it gives her, and frankly, I think it shows in her work. And today, I want to welcome Allison Ivy. Good morrow, Allison Ivy. Nice to have you on the Realm. How are you today?
I'm great. Thanks for having me.
Well, look, I'm excited to have you here. I had a chance to read The Dragon and the Double-Edged Sword. I know you're working on Project 2 that's related to that, and I wanted you to tell the viewers a little bit about Book 1 and where you're taking it down the road.
Sure. So Book 1, The Dragon and the Double-Edged Sword, the first in the Stones of Progress series. It's set in 2599 after humans are extinct by some unknown event. And it's about Lysandra, who's a mermaid. She has her elven guard, Sayali, and then she and him set off on a course to find these Stones of Progress before the witches can. So it's kind of a clash. And who's really the villain here? Who's the protagonist? That's kind of a question.
One of my favorite things about the novel is you combined a lot of very popular kind of mythical creatures that you've brought back, not just dragons, the idea of mermaids and harpies and elves. Did you find it fun, or was it difficult to kind of bring all of these varying cultural mythos together and create a novel out of them?
Yeah, that was probably the most fun I had with it. Was just researching these creatures. Like there's a naga in it in the first one, and then there's like a wahila, all these different things. So that was definitely the most fun of it all.
Was there a reason that you were choosing these? Are these things that were attractive to you as a young reader, or something you just enjoyed specifically? Because I like the way that you wove in some of the classic creatures versus some of the new creatures, and I'll let you talk about those too.
Yeah, so there's always like the classics. I know some people do like vampires. That's like the overdone trope. So I wanted to like get away from that and sort of just explore the creatures that, like, at least in Western society, aren't really spoken about.
I know you probably get asked all the time who your favorite characters were. On this show, we try to do things a little different. What was your favorite monster to work with in putting him in The Dragon and Double-Edged Sword?
Oh, that's hard.
Yeah, I got you.
So the second novel, one of the points of view in that novel is going to be a harpy. So I think that one is probably my favorite at the moment. Just delving into sort of like the winged creature.
Since you started us going down this path, you mentioned it. I'm gonna keep pushing it a little bit.
Mhm.
I don't want any spoiler alerts. I'm not going to tell anybody what to expect, save for the fact that the first book was really entertaining. But since you started talking about the second book, I'll give you a chance to tell us a little bit about what we can expect from that, Harpy included.
Sure, yeah. So the second novel is going to be titled The Harpy and the Forsaken Locket. It's told from Sayali's sister's point of view. She's introduced in the first novel. Her name's Ahara. And it's also like a multi POV novel. So it's different than the first one in that the first one was two timelines. And then this one's going to be like two or three points of view.
Did you find it difficult to walk away from Lysandra as sort of the main character and take a look at the realm through a second person's lens, in this case, maybe multiple points of view as you've described? And was that difficult for you?
It was kind of difficult because I've been in the mindset of Lysandra and like how she thinks. And Ahara wasn't a point of view character in the first one, but it was kind of like the natural way to progress the story. And so I had to just go with what felt natural.
Well, I can kind of see that. I just know that for some authors, especially those I've interviewed, they often have a hard time walking away from their favorite characters. So, with that, of book one, don't tell us anything about book two. Who was your favorite character in book one and why?
I have so many like favorites for different reasons, but I think Sayali was probably my favorite to write. He and Lysandra have developed a rapport, and he can be like sarcastic with her, even though he's like supposed to be her bodyguard. But he's very like doom and gloom and cynical, sort of.
Yeah, a nice little counterbalance to her, right?
Definitely.
I also noticed that in reading the first one, you kind of, and I don't want to call it time travel in the traditional sense that folks have seen, but in fantasy and or in science fiction, you often see versions of time travel. What inspired you to use the concept of time travel in the way that you did?
Using time travel was just my way of delving into like what exactly happened to the humans, and I'm going to like touch on that more as the series progresses, but I didn't want to just leave it and just say like humans are gone, they're not coming back. I wanted to tilt into maybe what would happen if they did come back. That's kind of how I approached it.
So turning just a little bit around, I know that you're an indie author. You chose to go down that path on purpose. Are you ever looking to try to find a publisher for the series? I mean, what's your thoughts and how do you enjoy being on the indie side?
Yeah, I really like being an indie author. I'm in control of so many things. I have final say on the cover, the title, the synopsis, my content.
A lot of people answer in that same way.
Yeah, I definitely like the freedom of it. There are downsides like marketing, like it's very hard to be like heard as an indie author, but it's the right path for me, I feel.
So when we get through book two, what's next? Is this a trilogy? Is this a series? Are you going to go on to the next project? What's next for Allison Ivy?
Yeah, it is going to be a trilogy, and the third book is bringing Ahara and Lysandra back, and like culminating in a whole finale sort of deal with the third book. And then after that, I do have another work in progress. I have to like have multiple things going. So this is like a horror novel. I always describe it as Buffy the Vampire Slayer meets Page Master. You remember
Interesting.
that Macaulay Culkin film?
Of course I
Yeah.
do.
It's about two women who get trapped in a novel and then they have to like play through these horror situations. And it's delving into like different types of horror, like suspense, splatterpunk, like slasher films. So it's very interesting and I'm excited to do it.
Well, anyway, we're coming to the end of the show. And typically, what I do at the end of every show, and I'm sure you've seen these on the other ones, is we have a lightning round. So I'm going to ask you a series of questions that I am looking for very one wordy or short responses to, just to have a little fun so that your readers and our viewers can know you a little bit better. So, you okay with that?
Absolutely.
All right. So, my first one, you mentioned vampires before, and I know that you also kind of mentioned, the kind of this dystopian thing that you've got going on. So I'm going to throw two at you: Twilight or Hunger Games. Which one?
Twilight.
Oh, okay. All right. Well, then I'm going to stay on that theme then. Team Edward or Team Jacob?
Team Jacob.
Oh, okay. All right. All right. Let's see where I'm going with this. Is it because he didn't wear a shirt? Is that the story? You just don't like vampires or whatever it is? I don't know.
I always felt like Edward is kind of like cold.
Well, he's a vampire. I'm sure he's cool.
Yeah, yeah, I know.
All right. So getting back to the fantasy theme, Lord of the Rings or Game of Thrones?
Lord of the Rings.
All right. Time travel theme then. Simon Hawke's Time Wars or Doctor Who?
Doctor Who.
Okay. Well, so you're a girl after my own heart. You're following along there. Although I did like Time Wars, it was pretty good. Star Wars or Star Trek?
Star Trek.
Wow, you're the first on the show, and I'm glad to hear it. Many people
Really?
immediately default to Star Wars, but I'm glad you said Star Trek because we needed to get them on the board for one of my interviews. So very good. All right, and then the last one, obviously with the title Dragon and the Double-Edged Sword, you gotta like dragons. So who is your favorite mythical dragon and why? And you can't use yours. None of this dragon and
Oh, I
double-edged
can't.
swords.
Oh, shoot.
The lightning round. Come on, come on, come on.
Aragon.
Oh,
The
there
dragon and
you go.
Aragon.
That's
Yeah.
one we haven't had either. And I'm glad to have them on the board too. See, you're throwing me a couple of curveballs today, but I've got it. Well, thank you very much for being on the realm. And I appreciate it. And anybody that hasn't had a chance to check out Allison Ivy's work, feel free to find it where?
It's available on Kindle Unlimited, and Amazon and Barnes and Noble.
Great. And thanks again, Allison, for being on the show.
Thank you for having me.
Well, as I expected, viewers, Allison's a great interview. I knew that we would get into some of those deeper subjects with her about the way that she's developed the dragon and the double-edged sword, which we just found out is not going to be just one book, not two books, but a trilogy. So if you haven't picked up The Dragon and the Double-Edged Sword, I'm going to tell you, you're going to miss something if you don't go out and get it, whether it's at Barnes & Noble, whether it's at Amazon, or if you got your Kindle and you're going to download it, do that. And speaking of downloads, my second novel, Vorden's Lair, is scheduled to come out in late August. I don't want anybody to forget about that. For those of you that are on my mailing list, you're going to get that when the pre-launch happens in the beginning of August. And again, thank you very much for spending this time with me at The Realm. I'm J.V. Hilliard, and may your gods go with you.